All right. Alisa, have you ever heard of WD-50? Does that name ring a bell?
Not WD-40 like the.
Not WD-40, WD-50.
Okay. No, no.
So WD-50 it was a restaurant in New York City that was opened by a chef named Wiley Dufresne. And it was one of the early movers in the molecular gastronomy movement. I was kind of obsessed with the restaurant. I never actually made it there. It's since closed because I never really thought of food as science. And that restaurant, I think, introduced the idea of science into the culinary world. It was one of the early movers. And now you see it everywhere.
I remember when it first came out. It was so cool.
It was a thing.
Like anything that was like smoking or like foamy was like, what?
Yep. You see it everywhere now. Like every Michelin starred restaurant has a little bit of it infused, you know.
At least in the little like amuse-bouche, you're like, oh,
exactly,
little foam.
Exactly.
Get me started.
Exactly. I was kind of obsessed with the idea of science being added to the kind of the art of cooking. I'm big into food. I know, Alisa, you are, and I know
I am
our
too.
our guest is today as well.
I'm smiling just that you guys started the session with talking about food, my favorite topic of all time.
Right?
We're going to get into it. So my question for Alisa is art versus science. You know, what inspires you more when it comes to food? And I guess Div as well.
I think what surprises me the most is when something looks so gorgeous. You know, like if you think about the Michelin star and it's like someone has gotten some like tweezers and put a little piece of a flower or gold flake to make it look just so, and it's just so gorgeous. For some reason, I never expect it to taste that good. You know, it's like you got to sacrifice something. If it's going to look beautiful, it can't taste this good. And so when I taste it and it is like, what is happening in my mouth? Like, how did they do this?
That's the magic.
I think the magic is the science behind it, because the art is like almost like smoke and mirrors, right? Like, hey, this is going to taste good. And you're like, we're all adults now. We know that not everything that looks good tastes good. But then when it does, like, that's the science that brings it all together.
For sure. Div, what's your take? Art or science when it comes to food?
Well, I'm a foodie, so I want to say both. So as I cook every day, I am a big believer of fusion. I try to bring different elements, different cuisines. I have all the way from Mediterranean to Italian spices in my kitchen. So there is an art to it, right? You don't want to just put something together up and then just be like, here, there's pasta for you, take it. I would rather think about how do I make it presentable. I like the Japanese idea of simplicity coming into it. So that's the art part of it. But there's also science to it, because you cannot just bring two spices together and expect it to blow your mind. So that magic that Alisa was talking about is what excites me about food. And I know people say they eat to live. I live to eat. So here it is.
Amen, sister.
Hi, everyone. I'm Div Manickam. I'm an explorer, mentor, and a director of product marketing.
Div, speaking of art and science, at the time of this recording, you're planning on speaking at the Product Marketing Alliance, but when this comes out, you'll have already spoken. So we're going to assume that you've already talked about mastering the art and science of product marketing. Are we going to hear about the book?
Well, the book's already out. It's been a year.
No, but I mean, in your talk, are we going to hear?
I will be talking about the book. Yeah.
You're going to tie it in, basically.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, basically, it's my past decade of experience in that book of what is product marketing and how did I come up with the idea of mastering the art and science of product marketing. Yep.
So how did you come up with it, since everyone's already going to know by now?
So the book is out. It's been published in August 2022. And when I started learning about product marketing, I'm an engineer by design. I assume most Indians are. So I was brought and raised to be an engineer, but I realized I was missing a part of my half, and that was the creativity aspect. So I wanted to figure out how product marketing is going to be that intersection when you're thinking about looking at the key elements of product, design, marketing all coming together. And so the book is about that. It's more half memoir, half stories and tales of my journey through product marketing in the past decade.
That's so cool. I love the connections that you've made there. Like, I don't think of product marketing as art and science and then connecting it to food. Like, what? I just I don't even have anything
even
good
more
to
so.
say. I'm just like, I'm still even though I'm still mind blown. I love that. I love it so much. I'm overcome with
Thank you.
admiration.
I mean, the science piece is always been, and it's probably going to be even more important, but the human piece and the art, I think, is not going away anytime soon. And maybe
It's not.
is that the point of difference
It
from
is.
good to great?
It is. And I think the art comes from the balance, right? You cannot sway one way too far into the science and then let the creativity, the art part disappear. And there was a very interesting concept that I read called creative abundance. It talked about finding inspiration amidst the chaos. And there is no better tagline to product marketing than just that, right? It is that chaos that you come in and you find your inspiration. Right now, I'm working on a product launch, and I'm like, where is my inspiration? My walks are my inspiration. I'm thinking product marketing, whether I'm working 9 to 5 or not, right? That's the nature of our work. A lot of it is creative thinking. It's figuring out, how do I tell my story? How do I make that little bit of creative edge, if you will? How do I find the innovation, even though it sounds like, oh, everybody else in the market has the same thing? So I like to find my inspiration in the unknown. Sometimes it's going to conferences and being like, oh, I like what they just said. I'm going to write it down. And that just throws another chain of thoughts in there. My best inspiration comes at 2 a.m. in the morning. Don't ask why I wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning, but that's just, sometimes it happens. So that's what I stand for. Like, finding that path for exploration. I'm an explorer, I'm a mentor, I'm an author, I'm a photographer. That's the creative side that comes into my day-to-day. So the photos that you're seeing behind me is part of my photo gallery that I had a chance to put at a library. And a year ago, if you'd asked me, Div, you're going to have a photo gallery, I'm like, no way, you got to be kidding me. But it happened, right? Like, this was a theme. I had a rainbow collection of flowers that I took during my travels. And that is part of my inspiration. That is part of the creativity that infuses into my day-to-day product marketing. Because otherwise, I'm sitting down with the product leaders, I'm sitting down with the marketing leaders, sales leaders, and we're all trying to make sense of what we want to get done. We don't really know the path forward, but somewhere in that middle, that magic happens. That's the recipe. And going back to the food analogy that comes by.
And you listen, you're dealing with kindred spirits here, because I'm a creative. Elisa has a lot of different creative enterprises that she's involved with. And we're both kind of in the marketing space and in the creative space ourselves. And so, like, a lot of both sympathy for the challenges, but then also like inspired by it as well. What's your take? So you're launching a product, you're building a go-to-market strategy, you're looking at the market for a new a product that's new to the world, basically. Yep. But I guess my question to you is, you're talking about inspiration, creative inspiration. In the context of something like this, where you're thinking positioning, you're thinking competitors, you're thinking the product itself, you're looking at the market, how is it an insight that you're looking for from a creative inspiration perspective? Is it the kind of point of difference that is the unique value proposition, or is it the one thing that's going to be the magic that's going to completely differentiate this product for you? And I guess if so, how are you finding that, besides your long walks or your 2 a.m. wake ups? You know?
I would say that's the mastering the art and science of product marketing, is finding the true essence. You can think about ingredients, right? Like, for me, I think about product marketing as messaging and positioning, buyer persona, product and solution launch, market and competitive intelligence, sales enablement. These are all different flavors that it comes into. And we can think of this as, there are different spices, and it's up to you to figure out what combination of those spices will create that signature dish that you want to put out there. For me, that new product is that signature dish. So I'm looking for, what am I hearing when I talk to the customers? So we have our product advisory council that's giving me that input. I'm talking to the analysts to understand, okay, what is the market actually looking for? Are we on track to build something that the market is ripe for? Or are we building something that the market, it will take another 10 years for the market to get to, right? So that timing is very essential. And so far we're hearing positive feedback, which is a good reinforcement. And the perfect reason for me to wake up every morning and get excited about what I'm working on, right? So that's, I think it's finding that true essence that we look for.
I love that you said that being a product marketer isn't just 9 to 5. You're always thinking about it. And all of your creative endeavors and pursuits and hobbies, like they all come together. And it sounds like it's like your recipe for success. Like a lot of people can get caught up in the rat race, and you bring meaning to your life, and then you also bring that meaning to your work, which it's like kind of a full circle moment to that creative abundance idea. And it's such a beautiful way to like make your job exciting and make each problem interesting.
I resonate a lot with butterflies, and I have butterflies literally around my apartment and the home that I'm in. And it's a symbol of trying to break through that cocoon and find your own way in life, and then be proud of it, because there was a part of me, I think, that was trying to fit into a mold that I couldn't really fit into. And that, I think, is the shift and the change that I'm seeing. And that also was also part of my journey with product marketing. I was like, I hear a lot of things about product marketing. I'm not quite sure I agree with them. So I wanted to challenge the status quo. And a lot of the work, the writings that I do on Substack came from that. I have a thought in my head, let me process it. And so writing became part of that therapy for me. I'm also a photographer, so I've been taking photos since 2016 on my phone. And people were like, you take really good photos. Have you ever thought of putting it up somewhere? And I'm like, okay, let me see what options are there. So I started sharing on Unsplash, and I started creating YouTube videos, because I started realizing the way I see the world is not how everybody sees it. And there's beauty in that. So I am capturing that beauty. Yeah, there's plenty more that I can fill into that portfolio life, but the creative aspect is a big part of me. And I realize every time I have any downtime, I'm either exploring, trying a new food place, or I'm doing a creative project. So I've been doing these butterfly origamis, and there was a cardstock of 250 I just finished. And I hung them up on my bedroom upstairs.
It's so fascinating, like the many different kind of layers to your life and your interests and how you pursue them. But like creativity, obviously, is a big part of your life. You work in a fairly like in the B2B space, in the technology space. Creativity is not the first thing people think about. How much feeds into, how much kind of finds its way into your work, into your content, into your team? Like, how do you think about creativity and kind of enhancing your work through creativity? And I take it your side hustle pursuits infuse dramatically into the work, huh?
It does. And I like to look at me as a battery. So every time I start my week with mentoring at 8 a.m. in the morning or 7 a.m. in the morning, that is fueling and filling in my battery. And then I had the meetings to drain me out. Then at the end of the day, I wrap up my day, right? Like mostly I have a hybrid work environment. So most of the times I'm working from home. So I try to make sure I have a clear delineation between, okay, I'm done with work. I need to switch it off. I don't know how to switch it off. I haven't found that switch yet. But I use Duolingo. So I've been trying to learn different languages. And so I'll do a couple quests on Duolingo to get my creativity going, right? Like learning, I'm a student forever, so I'm always learning and trying to find new things to learn. That's also part of my pursuit for the work that I do, right? If it is something that I'm already comfortable with and I'm not really learning anything new, I get bored very quickly. So for me, that 0 to 1 is the state that I enjoy. And that's been most of the pursuits and the work that I do in product marketing has been going into a company where they're at that 0 stage and they need to switch it to a 1. If you ask me to do a 1 to 1.1, I don't think I can do it, but I don't think I'll be as excited about it. And so that's important. So that's where the creativity and the inspiration part comes in, right? Like I can do product launches day in and day out, but how do I find what already exists in the market today and how can I find a new edge? How can I find a new way of thinking? Part of it is also mindset, right? So the product that I'm working on is a data integration product, and everybody needs data today. Data, analytics, reports, dashboards. We've all seen different variations of it in the past decade. Literally a year, 10 years ago was when I had my first job as a BI analyst. I never thought I would become a BI analyst. I had to literally search what BI analyst even meant.
Yeah, that's like pure data.
It is pure
Yeah.
data, right?
Yeah.
But now I feel like 10 years down the line, I'm coming full circle. And now these are my personas that I'm actually working with. And I was like, that was me. That's so wild. Like,
You know exactly what
how
they
could
need.
things be? Yeah. And so it's finding that, right? It's finding whatever that opportunity is to create magic, or maybe we are dreading the next meeting because we don't quite know where this is going. Like, I have a plan for what this product launch should look like, but if the product's not ready, we're not going to launch in the time we want to, right? So finding a little bit of serendipity, finding moments where the right time, the right ingredients, the right place can create that alchemy, right? Like we can create an experience. And this is where I thrive in those conversations with our customers, because we are creating that experience with them. We're not just saying, oh, let's go build a product and then just hope somebody's going to want it. We're partnering with them, we're collaborating with them, we are hearing what they want. And then that energy that you create, right? I'm a big believer of energy and aura. And if we can put that into any project, whether it's the mundane day to day, you can actually make shift happen.
Do you have advice for people in the tech space on the creativity piece? How to do you try to mentor your team, or try to kind of bring creativity or even the customer voice into the larger team?
I try
Is that part
is
of
probably the best explanation. I do, right? So I genuinely believe that there is no project that we can't do if we put our heads together. And as long as you have that open mindset. So there was one phrase that came up. I call it the CEO mindset. It's curiosity, it's empathy, and it's openness. I used to use those words as is. And then one of my mentees was like, Div, that stands for CEO. Isn't that cool? And I was like, no way.
Yeah, that's
so
perfect.
that became the mindset, right? It was a CEO mindset. It's like, as long as you have curiosity and you're like, why do we do it that way? Just ask why. I'm a big Simon Sinek fan. I can go on forever with his book, Start With Why, or his leadership principles. And it grounded me in a way to be like, okay, there are leaders out there that think differently from the typical B2B leaders that you see. And I wanted to become one of them. To be like, okay, how do I challenge what exists today? How do I make sure that we are infusing creativity into our day to day and not just going motionless on autopilot? Because I was there 4 years ago and I didn't like the person I had become. So it's a conscious choice, and I'm making that conscious choice to share my story, to share and help folks who need that help.
Div, it's really like cool that we get to experience. Like it's kind of like we're meeting the butterfly version of you, and like this portfolio, like everything is creative and connected, and I'm like. It's very inspiring, and I'm inspired by you, and I'm sure other product marketers and people in the marketing space are, because it's very easy to get like into the weeds of the politics and timing, when like for a product launches can be very stressful. Something always goes wrong at the worst possible time. That's what it seems like. We've been on the other side of product launches. I've done a few myself. I want to get into the tactics. Like, okay, what does this actually look like? So in your world, you talked about how there's, the personas, the positioning, the messaging, but like, what are you actually doing for a product launch? What does it look like?
Yeah, my day starts off with meetings, just like anybody else's does, but with the focus and intention to see where our launch is, what the timeline is. So putting together a go-to-market strategy. Right now, I'm super excited to get started with the webinar series that we're kicking off. So we know the product won't be ready until 2025, so we're working on putting together a campaign for what exists today and also to build the momentum, right? So this is part and parcel of that. And I love working on webinars because you come up with some really creative ways to tell your story, your narrative. What is it that you want people to take away, right? Sometimes customers will be like, "Oh, I never thought you could do that." So that is where this campaign, this integrated marketing campaign is, and it's working with cross-functional teams, right? I'm working with the marketing team, the growth team, the customer success teams. I'm working with sales. I'm working with product management. Like everybody comes full in to figure out what it is that we want to execute. And it's that rubber hits the road, right? GTM is only as far as the tactics that come into play. So strategizing, figuring out what we want to achieve, and coming up with that plan, and then bringing all the teams together. I'm excited to work with some of our senior leadership on some of these webinars as well, right? So that's where I think it comes down to. So it's the content we need to create. So I'm working on creating data sheets and ebooks and what is the edge, the angle that we have? What is our POV? All questions that are part of it. So past couple of weeks, I've been working on putting together a messaging document, putting together business use cases. And then now I'll be working with the technical product marketing team to get those use cases into demos and videos and all the fun stuff, that technical how-to guides that come from it, right? So yes, we have a strategy. We know we have to launch, but then the day-to-day momentum that we want to keep building on, and just getting to run with it, I think is also an opportunity, right? There's a lot of autonomy that comes within product marketing. And I love that because you gave me a challenge and you're like, go figure it out. If you need anything, ask. But otherwise, it's yours to run with. And I think that CEO mindset also brings that a bit, right? Like, I don't know where this path is going. It's the unknown, but we're going, right? So we coined our the webinar series as the next frontier. And this was something that I found inspiration reading somewhere online. And I was like, yep, it's the next frontier. It's a modern data stack. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to bring people to talk about it. And that's where the whole thing comes together.
What did you say the phrase was that you for the webinar series?
The next frontier.
The next frontier. How did you how are you from a tactical perspective? So you're talking to the customers, as a lot of technology companies do. They have councils of customers and so forth. You have an internal insights team that is probably supporting some of that work. What else are you looking to? I mean, you're the creative guru here, right? Like what else are you looking to?
You're thinking?
Whether it's content, how are you getting inspired? How are you informing kind of the vision and the positioning?
So I think content-wise, there are different angles we can look at, and I know I'm a true believer in creating evergreen content, but a lot of the process and the method to the madness comes from understanding what type of content is consumed. So I like to look at data to see there's already content out there that we are publishing. So which content is performing? Is it short form? Is it long form? Is it videos? Is it blogs? And making sure I'm thinking about that end-to-end buyer journey. So going from awareness, consideration to decision. How do I tie all those pieces together? And I find the words awareness, consideration, decision pretty heavy. So I simplified it. There's another variation of it, which I call discover, learn, try, buy, and advocate. And my job as a product marketer is only done when I find those advocates, right? These are your champions who will go be your customer success stories. So that's what I'm working on. That's my OKR, my end goal when we work towards this product launch, is having those referenceable customers and stories that I can actually bring to life.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about Evergreen. Let's talk Evergreen. You mentioned Evergreen content. You're a big fan of it. What's you obviously have a point of view on it. So what are your thoughts there? I have some thoughts myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts. So for me, when I think about evergreen content, it goes back to the first data visualization blog that I got to create 10 years ago. And guess what? It's still live. I'm sure the company that I was at went through multiple changes from leadership to marketing to everything, but that blog is still live. And it was my proudest content moment in my life because before that, I have never really created content. Evergreen content is showing that you care and it shows that it matters, right? That's what that data visualization blog was. It was March Madness. It had some stories about customer like dashboards and visualizations in there. But then for B2B, and this is my personal viewpoint, right? Our sales cycle is long. We're not just looking for, oh, let me just get a fish hook there and then get the customer and then reel them in. No, we are trying to build trust. We're trying to build credibility. We are trying to make sure that they see that we are in it for the long term and that's where thought leadership, all the content that you can create comes in. It shows that this evergreen content shows that you're not just talking about it today because it's the next new fad. You're talking about it because you care, you are invested in their success, and they will see that through, right? I've been writing on Substack for a couple of years now, and now I've gotten to the practice of writing every week. I have, as you know, I have different topics that I'm personally passionate about. And so I write about one topic a week. And that became a practice to allow me to create that evergreen content. There are folks that would have reached out to me and said, oh, I just read this blog of yours from 2020 or 2018. And sometimes I'm talking to a mentee and I'm having a conversation about, okay, here are some ways you should be thinking about your resume refresh. And I will point them to some of the content that I created. So it becomes this repository in some shape or form to be readily available when someone has a specific question and I have like 30 minutes to talk to them. I want them to dive in deep. This is the resource for them. That's where the B2B marketing and buyer journey comes into the lens of evergreen content.
Yeah, to me, the challenge with evergreen content, it's easy to make kind of temporal content that's connected to the product or the brand in a given moment that's relevant to the brand and the product. On the other hand, it's easy to make content that's disconnected from the brand or a product, but is just kind of like generally applicable, like that has a long shelf life, that's evergreen. To me, the magic is the connection between the brand positioning, the value proposition that the brand brings or the product, and connecting it where they're both optimized, where like it's both going to work generally for a long time, but it also has a connection to the brand and the brand purpose and the brand voice and the mission. You know what I mean? It's very rare that you see just, like home runs in that space.
Absolutely.
Everyone's
Yeah.
trying it.
Yeah. No, and that's true because every prospect is going through that phase, right? They are in either that discover phase or the try and buy phase. And there is enough data to say that actually they do their research before they even come talk to you. And that's, I think, why we need to be thinking about content and the work that we do, whether it's an integrated marketing campaign or elsewhere, that it's not a linear process. We want to say, okay, they do step 1, step 2, step 3. That's not the reality. They might have gone and read something online. They might have checked out your webinar, or they went to an event and they heard about this and they were like, oh, I think I have that same problem. Let me see what my options are. If you are not there at that moment in time, right? We often talk about competitive analysis and win-loss and everything. And 70%, and this is my hunch, right? 70% are the ones where we are not even in the conversation. We're missing out. And so how do you create that? That is by going back to creating these stories, narratives, so that when they're doing that research, they have a clue that, oh, there is this company X that is talking about something similar and I like the way they're thinking, or, oh, that's a different way from what I've learned so far. Let me dig in deep, right? It's coming up with that. That would be that connection that you just talked about. So tell a compelling story, and then see how you can walk that transformation journey together.
I really think that like being a creative yourself like influences that. You know, you've talked about writing for yourself and then writing for others. And in product marketing, you have to write for them. You have to write for the stage that they're in to give them exactly what it's all about them, right? All of your everything you do and all of the content you create is for the customer. So in a nutshell, if you could summarize what you think would make evergreen content last the test of time, what would that be?
I would focus on the customer pain points. Start by asking why, right? Why do our customers or prospects care? What's in it for them? Find your true advocates, your champions, and then create that unique value proposition. We've all heard this in messaging, positioning 101, right? That unique value proposition, as simple as those 3 words are, is the hardest thing ever. Nobody quite understands what product marketing is. And that's one of the reasons why the book, Mastering the Art and Science of Product Marketing, came to being, because I would sit with the product team and they're like, oh, you're marketing great. Can you go update this thing for me on the website? I would go sit with marketing and they were like, oh, great, your product. So we have this webinar we need to do. We have this analyst conversation we need to do. Can you put a pitch deck together? And then I would sit with sales and they'll be like, oh, hi, product marketing. Can you pretty up my presentation slides for me? And thankfully, the creative in me can do all of that. But then I want to challenge them and be like, yes, I can do that, but I could also do something more. Walk me through what your story is. What are you trying to tell? And that's that unique value proposition. It literally tests our patience, our perseverance. And that's all I have committed to, right? It's the now. Like, what can I do to make this change happen? And then finding creative ways to do it, right? As product marketing, we'll have so many rejections. Sometimes it's your content that is not performing the way it should. Sometimes it's, oh, we just ran this webinar and we got 400 people. Next webinar, get double that. And then you end up getting 100 and you're like, that didn't feel quite good. But then it's the momentum, right? Einstein says this probably best, right? I didn't fail. I'm just closer to success. That's the growth mindset that comes in. And a lot of us in product marketing come with that. Every day is a new day. I will hit reset every week and keep trying, keep making that shift, whatever it is that I need to navigate through so that I can find the essence of the story I want to tell. What does product marketing look like, feel like in this company, and how do I shape that?
The journey that you're on is fascinating. All of your interests are super fascinating. The fact that you're so creative and have so many different ways to express it and you nurture it too, I think is inspiring, Div. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm trying to be authentic and trying to be true to myself. So I truly believe sharing is caring. Like, that's, if there's one thing you want to take away from this discussion today, it's just that sharing is caring.
Amazing.
I'm also taking away the CEO mindset, curiosity, empathy, and openness. I truly hope any CEO listens to this podcast because if
and
more
portfolio life
and
portfolio life.
If more people if more leaders like you could understand how important that is to our everyday life, like it would really change the landscape of
It
in
has
our
to
case,
change,
B2B
Alyssa, trust
marketing
me.
in the world.
It has to change because there's only so much that we can keep putting in. I truly believe in the idea of radiating kindness, right? No matter what you do today or tomorrow, always be kind and show loving kindness and just abundance. It will always be with you in your life.
Who says B2B has to be boring?
Not us.
Like this video if you agree, and definitely subscribe if you want to get more out of your B2B marketing.
Maybe start with one of these, and if that's not enough, head over to LinkedIn or storiesbureau.com and say hello.
We can't wait to meet you.